Everybody
I'm
got
always going like
microphones on?
this, trying to set up.
We're good. Mic's on. Travis?
Yep, we go.
Allison? Yep. All right, good evening, everyone. I'll call this work session of the Richland Hills City Council to order. We'll review items listed on tonight's agenda and receive a CIP development overview. No formal action will be taken during the work session. Any action items will be considered during the regular session. And we'll start out with Jason Moore. No, okay,
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm going to kick it off, and then I've got JP Duque, Kelly Morris, and Eric Valdez here to kind of help kind of talk through what the strategy is for putting together a new CIP plan. So we don't have specific projects and cost estimates broken down for you tonight. What we do have is the framework on how we prioritize the infrastructure and the facilities and all of our assets throughout the city that would fall under a CIP plan. And the point would be to bring back to you a resolution on the June 26th meeting, or June 22nd meeting, that would outline like an official framework for how we score and weight CIP projects. And at that same meeting, we'll also have a list of projects and their associated costs with those. So for the purpose of tonight, we just want to be very clear on what your objectives are for how we would rank capital projects. And I'll go through what staff's recommendation is based off of other examples across the state of Texas and how other cities are managing capital projects and how they score and rank those. The point is to give you, as council, very clear, data-driven, objective reasons why you would fund a capital project. So we take streets, water, sewer, drainage, facilities, parks, all those things, and decide, okay, you have X dollars a year, how are you going to fund, or which projects are you going to fund? This will give you a very objective list to pull from. And then it still gives you the flexibility to change how those get scored at any point in time. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about what staff's recommendation is and why a matrix is being presented to you tonight. So the problem with status quo right now is, the limited funding that we have for capital projects. There's not a significant amount of funding where we can tackle multiple projects. So you're getting very limited ability to knock down some of the projects that are really needed for a city our age and size. And so by putting together a scoring matrix, this will allow you to kind of move projects up and down based on the dollar amount, the size of the project, and then whether it's a life safety issue or based on some of these different criteria. So I think once we get into the criteria, it'll make a little more sense of what we're proposing. So just for the public's benefit, what is a capital improvement plan? For City of Richland Hills in our charter, we're required to adopt a 5-year CIP plan. And that allows you to foresee out the next 5 years what capital projects you would tackle as part of your annual budget. A capital project is anything $50,000 or total or above in terms of its cost. It typically has a useful life of 10 or plus years. It's not a routine something that we do annually like fix potholes or do a mill and overlay. That would be a maintenance and operation expense versus a full reconstruction or replacement of utility. So the point again is to take our comprehensive plan, take any adopted plans that you have, take your economic development, transformational areas in consideration, and develop this CIP in conjunction with those other elements. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that framework looks like. These are just some of the cities that have pretty robust CIP plans and how they study or how they score their different projects. What they all have in common is they separate they make it very objective, but they separate into a 2-category structure where you have all the criteria fits into a community impact versus organizational feasibility. So what's our ability to deliver this project, and then what does it do for the community from a benefit standpoint? They all leverage grants, so obviously anytime we can get grant funding, that will score higher, and it leverages because we're able to take our dollar and return sometimes up to $8 dollars back from federal government or other grants. It puts us into better regulatory compliance. Example of this might be that TCEQ says, hey, Kelly, we need to address something at a water tower or one of our public works facilities. Those are things that are really non-negotiable. We have to follow from a regulatory standpoint. It's the law, so they're mandated. And then they're all data-driven. So these cities all provide capital programs that have data analysis. When we present back to you on June 22nd, you'll see some of the data that's been collected. Kelly's been working on with the Biolytics. So we have pavement condition index for all of our city streets. We've got water, sewer, we've got utility breakdowns of where all those projects are and how we would work that into this criteria for scoring. So core principles, and this is something that we would like your feedback on this particular slide. Number one, do we want data over opinion? In some cases, there might be.
Absolutely data.
not. Okay,
We have to say it out loud.
Yeah. Transparency, obviously, this is something that we're gonna provide a scoring criteria. Council would be adopting this. This would be a part of a published plan on the city's website, so anybody can see how these projects are being scored. Not just the framework or the scoring criteria, but also every individual project that comes back before you will have a detail sheet that has the rubric associated with it, so everyone can see how these are being scored. We'll want to make sure that everything is very consistent. So from a scoring criteria, how are staff members scoring these to make sure we're being consistent with what you believe is important. Equity, so no neighborhood or district receives any priority outside of the scoring system. Again, if it's a part of a comprehensive plan or a redevelopment plan, that will be incorporated into that score. So it'll already be considered as part of that. Fiscal responsibility, for a project that can deliver return on investment, there's a portion of the score that's weighted towards economic development and financial return. And then strategic alignment is the project associated with the approved master plans or comp plans that we have already adopted. So can I get your feedback on these kind of core principles as we're outlining a framework? Are we on track with this?
I think so.
I believe so. Yeah, I don't see anything out of line, really. I mean, that's what other cities are doing too, and it's basically, that's what's best, so.
When you're ranking these things, who is going to be ranking them?
So that's a good question. The scoring team will be myself and the three gentlemen up front. So Eric, Kelly, and JP. And then we will run those lists by our council committee that you'll formally pick tonight for infrastructure, and then those will be recommended to the full council. But you'll see the details of how the four of us are scoring these. And they'll be the criteria are pretty objective. We've got handouts in your binders of the document, so when we get to those slides, you should be able to pull that out and see even more detail than what I'll show you on the slide, but it'll tell us exactly how we score these. So it leaves very little room for any subjectivity.
On the fiscal responsibility, is there going to be any floor ceiling on?
Well,
pending.
50,000 is going to be the kind of the floor because of the capital
Well, yeah.
definition, but it's going to also play into, and when I get to the last slide on here, I'll show you an example of how this will work. But let's say we have 50 projects today that we could identify and score, and we've got $2.5 million that we can fund projects with. You're going to have a list of everything that can fund above that line. You might have $100,000 left. We can go down the list and see, is there a $100,000 project or two, maybe two $50,000s that we can bump up into that may surpass a couple others. So there will be this kind of fine line of we want to maximize our full capacity, because the CIP is funded primarily through our INS rate, so the interest and sinking fund, and any self-supported tax debt, like revenue bonds from utilities, drainage fees, RHDC, the Development Corporation sales tax. So those things are will all play into what our available funding is. And when we come back to you on the 22nd of June, we'll have that analysis for you as well. So you'll be able to kind of see what the numbers are looking like. And then here's the list of
And how-
projects, and what can we fit inside that. Okay, so here are the criteria that we're looking at. We've got 9, and we had 8 this morning, and Mr. Valdez brought up a good point. So number 4 was added as part of this criteria. Consequence of deferral and opportunity cost. Okay, so that is something that's going to be very important. But we'll start with number 1, public safety. That has a weight of 25%. So that's health and life safety type considerations. Then we have regulatory legal compliance. I'll get into a little bit more detail in the next slides. Infrastructure, condition, and asset life. So this is the Violytics. So we'll look at pavement condition. For Kelly's analysis through Public Works, we have if a water line, what size it is, what material it's made out of, when was it put in the ground, how many times are they going out and repairing that specific line. So we have a lot of details on streets and utilities. We have details on facilities, how old is a HVAC mechanical system or a roof on one of the facilities. So all this asset management plan will get rolled up into each project that's over $50,000 will be rolled into the larger CIP. Consequence of deferral, strategic plan alignment, economic development impact, external funding, grant leverage. Is there an operational budget impact? So is this project going to save us money annually by putting in a capital project? And then timing, sequencing, and urgency. Sometimes we may see that a project it's a little this is different than number 4 in that the cost escalation or just the general infrastructure costs are going to be higher versus the risk of not doing anything may mean that you eliminate a program. So if you had to shut down a park because you couldn't update the equipment, that number 4 would be you're completely eliminating the use of that park. Versus number 9, it's the cost that you're going to be missing out on. Doing a project today is about 0.8% cheaper than it is next month. So every time we wait another month, it's about 0.8% higher in cost. So these are a little bit more of a breakdown of how we score each one of the criterion. So public safety, I'm not going to read these word for word unless you want me to go into more specifics. But generally, these 9, you're seeing the points that are associated with those. Do these fall in line with kind of the rank that you would expect? So we have public safety, 25 points, which is the highest. Regulatory legal compliance is at 20 points. Infrastructure condition is at 15. Consequence of deferral is 10. And then the next 3, strategic plan alignment, economic development impact, and external funding are all each 8. Operational budget impact and timing and sequencing are each 3 points. So there's a weighted average that each one of these gets multiplied by. So if we go in and we've got a 1 through 5 scoring system, and it's worth 10 points, there's a potential of 2 times the amount of that score. So we would multiply the actual score that we have. So if we got a 4 on this one, for number 4, we would multiply that by 2, and you have 8. And so each one of and I'll show you an example that makes it more sense. But at the end, you end up with a score 0 through 100. And we'll be able to look at these projects based on different tiers. So if it's a 75 and above total score, that would kind of push it up to the top tier. Means we probably need to do this project as soon as possible. there's gonna be a lot of those, I imagine, and there's gonna be a lot that we don't have the funding for within our current structure. So this is where, you know, there's gonna be some further discussion about how do we fund these? You know, do we look at bond election? Do you look at moving some things around within the INS and the maintenance and operations side of the budget so that we can get more capacity?
I think what would be helpful on something like that is, I don't even know what you call it, but it's I don't know if it's a spreadsheet PDF, but it's a moving comparison. As you move up say the strategic plan alignment, then everything else moves according to where you put that option. You know, like, if you're gonna have grant's gonna be 50,000. Okay, well, we're only gonna take 25, so that means the general fund cost goes up, and, you know, how everything's affected.
Yep.
Just moving that one slide and it adjusts everything else. I think you can do that on AI.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll be able to definitely plug all this into it.
And that would be fun to play with when we have a decision to make, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Generally, though, are these 9, are you in agreement with the 9 criterion, or is there any other?
Yeah, I think the consequence of deferral is a real good add.
Yeah.
That was a good choice.
Yeah. Okay, so, again, this is kind of how they're classified, these projects. So we have 4 tiers. 75 to 100 is our highest priority. Tier 2 is 50 to 74. Those are things that we might be able to start the design of something. So if there's a street project, we can kick off the cost of the design so that we can try to accelerate the savings on construction by pushing that construction out. Tier 3 is 25 to 49 points. Those are things that we're just kind of tracking, we'll monitor, but they don't necessarily fit any type of immediate funding. And then, and again, these projects, every year that there's water lines in the ground, it's adding years to it. So those scores will start to go up. So you might see projects leapfrog other projects based off when they hit those points in their useful life. And then tier 4, those are ones that we'll come back and reevaluate, rescore, but we will defer those for the next year's plan. So this is the timeline for what we are looking to do right away. We would come to you now. I'm going to kind of back up. This year is a little bit different because we're starting right now in June. We've already been working since November, I think, when Kelly got the Biolytics on starting to put that into play. So we've got a good asset management plan working, like a working spreadsheet of all of our facilities, all the parks, all of the streets, drainage, water, sewer. So we have a good list. So we're not behind. But to get you a project in a 5-year CIP, we're going to be moving very quick between now and July. So we are going to be working on that as staff. So that the goal is by your meeting, which will be the 4th Monday of July, that you will be voting on a 5-year CIP. So, but typically, once we get through that, immediately in October, we'll kick off this process internally, and we'll start going through the exercise. Kelly will probably have new data already with the Biolytics, and we'll start rescoring some of these projects, and then we will submit those to council by January. So you'll start looking at a CIP plan typically in January. February, we'll make the final cut, and then by April, you're adopting the CIP plan. And then that way, that is taken care of. That handles your INS portion of the tax rate, and then we're moving in through the rest of the operating budget for the rest of the summer. So that's how the sequencing and timing will work going forward.
So how are you using the current CIP 5-year plan to feed into this?
We're taking the data that we have from that, and that'll be incorporated into kind of the larger plan. I'm not sure, I can't find a scoring criteria of how those projects were put in there. It may have been more like politically, where it's, these were priority projects from whether it was staff or council, I don't know.
Okay.
But we're basically starting from scratch when it comes to the.
Okay,
what
from
we
a
have.
scoring perspective?
Yes.
I think that's best. Things have changed and,
Things have
no
changed.
criteria in the past either that we know
But
of.
it's-
Okay. All right, so funding sources, we met with the city's financial advisor with Hilltop Securities, Marty, this morning, and Cooper with McCall, who's our bond counsel. So we have kind of two players when we're looking at funding capital projects, beyond what Elizabeth and her team do with TOS as the city attorney. We're looking at what is our debt capacity and financing, what's the best structure that we can put together to fund projects for the CIP plan, and then what's the legal ramifications if you had to go get voter approval, not even just voter approval, if you issue certificates of obligation, those things still have to be run through the Attorney General's office, and that's where the bond attorney comes into play. So here's kind of 7 types of funding that we're obviously going to be looking at as we're putting together the plan for you. If you have general obligation bonds, those are voter approved. Northwich and Hills just did a $49 million street project bond. You know, they're a lot larger in scale from a taxable value perspective, so we would never propose that to you, but that is just an example of the GOs. So that's you providing a list to the public and asking the residents to vote on using tax-supported debt on a project. So that's property tax that would go towards. Now, you can get voter approval on, let's just say it was a 5-cent tax increase on a GO bond. You may not have to use all that. You may have other revenues. You may want to use your RHDC sales tax to make a monthly or an annual payment for debt service. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have that type of tax increase, but you have the voter approved list of projects that you can fund. So that's kind of the big one, gives you the most flexibility. Of course, the voters approve that. And so if they want you to do it, they'll vote in favor of it. Certificates of obligation, those don't require voter action. It requires city council, public resolution and approval. There are requirements for 30-day public notice and notice of intent and things like that that we have to validate. State and federal grants, we are going to be actively working with our different partners at COG, from the transportation side to the flood mitigation with the Texas Department of Emergency Management, to try to leverage grants to assist with funding major drainage and transportation projects throughout the city. Tarrant County, Kelly's going to do a presentation later that I think is related to this, but Tarrant County offers interlocal agreements with cities where we can partner with them. We buy the materials, they do the labor. And so partnering with Tarrant County, we think we can do 10 to 12, maybe 15 street projects of mill and overlay with the sales tax that the residents have voted to use for streets. So we can do that. We can use it for some curb and gutter enhancements where needed. We can do sidewalk repairs where needed. But we can almost double the amount of projects that we could do. And he'll talk about the cost differences later, but Tarrant County, cuts that cost significantly for us, so we can push the sales tax dollars a lot further. So there's some things that could be taken off of a CIP list because we're not going to do full reconstruction. We can do it as a mill and overlay and push it into the maintenance and operations side, and then that's being funded by the street sales tax. Developer contribution and impact fees. We don't have a lot of new single-family development or new development that you're seeing typically where cities are collecting fees. We actually just have pass-through impact fees for Fort Worth. So if somebody comes and builds a new project that's on a piece of land that hasn't been developed, they'll pay an impact fee. But a lot of times the developers will contribute to the infrastructure, the public infrastructure, as part of their project. So there's another opportunity there. Number 6 is new private project revenue that's generated from that development. And that's similar to a TERS. We wouldn't necessarily set up a TERS, which is the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, or TIF. We would just do an economic development agreement with the developer and say, you build this road or this utilities, and we will reimburse you a portion of your new property tax, sales tax that comes from the project to pay you back for that public infrastructure. So they front the cost. We take the new taxes that are coming from their development and rebate it back to them until they pay themselves back. And then finally, the fund balance, we don't really have the ability to do that right now with a lot of projects, other than the existing Baker TIF that we've talked about. If we wanted to dissolve that TIF and take the fund balance and use it for some of the capital projects, we could do that. Any questions on funding sources?
Very well laid out.
Okay, so as far as the process of putting all this together, and this goes back to Councilmember Campbell's question of who's involved on this and scoring. So as the city manager, it'll be kind of my responsibility to provide you with the full plan. But we'll be working specifically with department heads on submitting projects and making sure that those lists are always up to date. Of course, we'll have the financial advisor that will validate any financial requirements and how we fund these projects and the mix of funding options that you'll have. City Council, you will continue to review the scoring criteria to ensure that it's still in line. If we get through year 1 or 2 and you're saying, this doesn't make as much sense as we thought, let's update it, that's something that you could do by resolution to amend this. And then if you would like advisory input, a lot of times the capital, JP, is the Planning and Zoning Committee our CIP advisory committee here?
I don't know that that's the case, I'll have to check.
Okay, I don't know if that's a statutory requirement, but a lot of cities use their capital improvement advisory committee to inform the program itself, and then that's a recommendation up to council. So that's something that we can work with P&Z and your other boards and commissions if you want to get feedback as we go through the process. So from a transparency and accountability perspective, this will be, the intent is to have this fully accessible on our website. So when we have the actual project list, not only will you see a summary and a map, we have a map today. It's got some older projects on it, so we'll work with Half Associates on the GIS side to update this. But it'll have the project map. You should be able to click on it on the project or the site, and then it'll take you to a separate call out or a detail sheet that has the budget, the source of funding, the timing, expected completion, and what year it was funded or expected to be funded.
That's when.
And so those will be available for, and we're working on, what that budget detail sheet looks like, but we've got a pretty good template for that. And then, of course, Viesta, who you've hired to help us with that, is working in the backside, helping put some of that together right now. It is my plan to have a report card to you as we come back to you to ask for the next set. We will have, here's what we did over the last year, and this is how we would score ourselves. And then we'll make any amendments or necessary revisions as needed as we move forward. We'll also log how those projects were scored, and if we're doing 0 life safety scoring for whatever reason, maybe that's not 25 points because we're not seeing that as a part of our scoring. So we will bring that recommendation back to you to update if needed. All right, so to get the projects adopted by July, this is our timeline. We'll bring back a resolution on June 22nd that has a CIP prioritization framework. So it's essentially the document that you have in your binder, which is this presentation, but in a Word file. If you have recommendations or any updates or changes, we'll just ask that you get us any feedback you can as quick as possible.
Quickly.
And we will put that in the agenda packet so that the public can see what that is. This presentation will also be added to the website so everybody can have access to it. The next step will be getting all the projects finalized so we can get those into a spreadsheet. We'll have the details of what the pavement condition scoring index was and the details of the water line and the sewer line and the parks and the facilities, all that detail will be available. But what you'll end up seeing is kind of a roll-up of the summary sheet, and then it'll tie back into other spreadsheets. So like it'll give you the final kind of spreadsheet, but we'll have that to you by the end of June. And then the third step is to actually start putting them in tiers and meeting with the financial advisor on kind of validating all the costs so that we can provide you what we believe is kind of our final set of what we can fund in this next 5 years and immediately the next year. We'll have a council work session on June 22nd to talk about the numbers. We'll bring that back with the adopted framework on your July, fourth Monday of July meeting, where you'll actually vote on the 5-year CIP. And we'll have financial advisor or anyone else that's needed for you to ask any questions if you have them. And then in August is when we would likely go for the budget approval, and that's for both the capital side and the operating side. And that's if we do the de minimis rate like we have in the past. That'll be the timeline when we need to approve the budget. Any questions on timing there? Okay. So again, the purpose of this is to remove subjectivity. It gives you hopefully the confidence that we've got a very transparent and robust framework, so it's very data-driven. It's actually going to help us attract better funding when we have a robust plan. COG and all the funding agencies out there are going to look at it much higher, not only them, but also our bond ratings folks. So if we go to issue debt, the better your plan, the better your rating potential. It does create real accountability so that we can see these projects every year and make sure they're moving. As we grow, and I say growth from a redevelopment standpoint, but as we get higher taxable value and things, then obviously the CIP has more opportunities to grow with that. And again, we're not the first city to come up with this. A lot of cities are winning awards for these type of programs, and it's probably one of the more financial stewardships, I guess, that you can perform as a city, is to ensure you've got data-driven analysis. So this is an example of a project scoring sheet. So we've got an XYZ street water main replacement. So this is something Kelly's been working. He's had the guys out. It's over a 1/4 mile long water line. It's a cast iron 6-inch. It was installed in 1971. This is a made-up project. He's like, we don't have any of that. But it's had 3 breaks in the last 18 months. It's either costing him to pay for a contractor to come out as an emergency repair, 20, 30, 40,000 every time, or his guys are spending overtime on-call hours to go out and manually spot repair where they can. It happens to be located in the Boulevard 26 corridor area. So as we're talking about economic development and larger corridor plans and comprehensive plans, it's in a viable area. We can actually leverage some Texas Water Development Board funding through this program, where this one we could get likely 65% funding through Texas Water Development Board. And it's also required to do a street resurfacing project. So we need to replace the water line before we can do the street. We don't want to replace the street and then go back and tear that up. So it's a condition. And the project cost is $1.8 million. So this is the project. That's the details that we'll have in our detail sheet. And then we'll start going through the matrix. There's obviously public health and safety, people that anytime there's a water main break, we got to shut the water off. And then sometimes you got to boil the water when you repressurize. So it's a significant risk anytime we have to do that. There's also fire flow issues if we needed to go put out a fire while this line is broke. So that one you can see would score fairly high in that category. So total score comes out to 87 and out of 100, so that's over that 75-point threshold, so it sticks it into the tier 1. It saves us $75,000 a year in ongoing cost, and so this is one that would kind of rise to the top, just generally, unless there was 10 others like it, and there could be. So this is what the score, so staff is going to look at this and say, okay, public health and safety, if there's no direct safety impact, we're going to score it a 1. If it's an active hazard or there's a larger impact, imminent risk, we'll score it a 5. And so we'll have these definitions within this that allow us to ensure we're kind of scoring from the same, everybody's using the same book. All right, so then we do this for every single project, and then it'll summarize the list, and we'll start seeing projects populate on a summary board. And again, this is what you'll actually be voting on whenever it comes time in July to vote on the CIP plan. And this only shows you 3 projects, but you'll likely have 10 or so. Yeah. And then the dashboard, you know, we'll work with HAF to get that activated immediately. So upon approval, you'll see that come out, and then you'll be able to click and use the dashboard accordingly throughout the life of the projects. And that's the last slide I have. So any questions on, are we going in the right direction, and can we get your thumbs up or down or comments before June 22nd?
I have a question. You have got this entire framework built. You've hung every ornament on it known to man. What do you need council for?
I don't, what we don't want to do, like, we want to take the subjectivity out. We don't want to make the political position or the policy decision for you.
But you said leave politics out of it.
Yeah, but I think the
So-
politics are the criteria.
So are you still needing us?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Good question.
I'm hopeful that.
Minimally, we need to say yes or no. We got to endorse it.
Yeah, there's only one answer to that one.
Well, so as an elected official, I look at this differently, but if I was not elected and I was just somebody living here or watching this online, I'd have a lot of confidence in hearing something like this, knowing that there's really some strategy and some data behind everything that we're gonna be doing, and not just, well, they're just gonna do whatever they wanna do. That's the big deal.
That's the
Yes.
item that we really want to argue with, is to be able to show the residents that, and I think where you have council confidence, that should be public confidence.
Right.
Because I think the council's got good confidence in this. I think we need to develop, help and raise public awareness and confidence in what we're doing. Eliminate that, they said they were going to do this and then they didn't.
Or, just giving out the real hard data, because, I'll hear, oh, it's just, it's over there. All they care about is over on this one part of town, and they don't care about this part of town and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, here's why we did it, here's the ranking system, here's everything. So I like that. Something else I know where we come in is obviously the funding sources. And, I mean, you can't put this on a calendar, but, one of your, funding sources is a bond election, which I know there's timelines to where you have to call it each, for November or May. So, I mean, we've got to work that in too to see if one time we want to do this and what that would look like and all that. And I'm not even saying I would support a bond election, but it's something we as a council do need to discuss, I believe.
Yeah, that's a good point. The timing for a November, we have to call the election by early August. So there's a what's the date?
August 17th.
August 17th. So you would have basically 3 council meetings before then. But you can do that again in February for the May election.
Right, we can wait till
Things like that.
May. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be November, if we did one at all, but yes.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Very good.
This, the framework makes total sense.
So we don't have any more items for the workshop, so no executive session. Is there anything you want to talk about before we start the regular session?
Well, we have to wait till 6:30 to start the regular.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
just
so-
anything before.
Well, if you want to talk a little bit more about the funding, that could be something we can talk through as part of the work session for this item.
Okay.
Is, right now, we met with the financial advisor, and within our current INS rate capacity, so we've got the M&O, Maintenance and Operations, and Interest and Sinking Fund, that makes up the total city portion of the tax rate. That INS has capacity of about $2.5 million. And so you can issue certificates of obligation, but that's the property tax supported. That doesn't mean that's all you got. If you wanted to fund water and sewer or drainage, you could tack that on and then use water sewer revenues, which we haven't issued the capacity for that debt either. And those revenues come in and you can probably get $3.5 to $4 million of project costs, right now. So that's another timing thing, Councilmember Malone, that you bring up is, in order to use that, we need to be able to keep the capacity of the INS rate where it is. If we don't use it, you lose it.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah.
you go back to the voters to increase the rate. So it eliminates not our ability to function as an operating budget side, but capital side. So we need to call a notice of intent to issue that $2.5 million, to keep the rate where it is by August, in order to keep that funding on this cycle. So that's something that we'll have the financial advisor talk you through a little bit more, later this month,
Okay.
and what that looks like. But that $2.5 million doesn't necessarily have to look like a street project or drainage. It can be, something additional. So we're hopeful that we can get you enough project details in this list together quick enough to where you can make some calls on what would you use that for.
Even if you were to just get the top 5, that would
Mhm.
be good for right now.
Right.
Yeah, but $2.5 million is that's not a lot of funds when it comes to these big projects.
Yeah, it might be some facilities, where you've got several 200,000. I mean, I think we've got HVAC systems on all of our buildings that are significantly aged, roofs. So that might be the better path to go, is to improve some of the facilities within that, and then take our water, sewer, and other funds. It's not going to take $2.5 million, but if we had water and sewer that we could leverage with some bigger street projects, we could do that. And then the GEO, so if we went for voter, one of the things that we've put in some reports in the past, or we've talked about with council, is the ability for, getting a developer in tow for a transformational size project. And if you do that, that would give you the recipe to support, a tax increase from a voter perspective, because you're going to end up building the momentum and the velocity of vertical development that will generate a quicker return on investment. So you may get voter approval for a tax rate, but you likely wouldn't use that because you're generating new revenue quicker, so that you can offset it with new tax revenue. And then that tax rate is still available to you to leverage, but the goal would be, from an economic development, like transformational, larger tracks that we've been talking about on the strategic plan.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the mechanisms to do that. And I think to negotiate with the developer and to have cost estimates out there, that's going to take a little bit of time. And we wouldn't want to rush that part of it, because that'll be very critical. We wouldn't make a recommendation to you without having that piece in place.
Right. Okay.
But we have very successful conversations with some of these developers lately, so that's good news.
It is real good news. All right, anybody have anything else? Let's take a 14-minute recess, and then we'll get started.
Find one. So it's 5 people, at least half of them have to be developers, real estate, or building industry, people who aren't employees or officials. But
That aren't,
otherwise,
okay,
yes, but otherwise it can be anyone else.
okay.
But yeah, I can't, just from your code of ordinances, I can't find that you've established one.
Okay. I want to say, yeah, I don't remember.
Everybody has any of the night, so, I know. Does that work for you? Okay. What about the other
Probably
Thank you.
Here it is.
Lights on, everybody. Good evening. I'll call this regular meeting of the Richland Hills City Council to order. The time is now 6:31. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight, and all the city staff that's here, too. So, at this time, if you'll please stand for the invocation led by Councilwoman Allison Barger, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag and the Texas flag.
Lord, I just thank you for today and for our city. I thank you for our first responders, staff, council, the businesses, the churches, families, and individuals that make our city a great place. I pray for this council meeting tonight that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we deliberate on the items before us. May every decision be righteous in your sight and for our benefit and your glory. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, one God, one indivisible.
Thanks, Allison. All right, now, thank you all. We're going to move on to the presentations. First, we'll have a proclamation recognizing National Parks and Recreation Month. Parks and Recreation services strengthen community health, quality of life, and public spaces that bring residents together. We're grateful for all of our Parks and Recreation staff that came to that are part of our community. And I'm going to read it since they all showed up tonight, so. All right, whereas Parks and Recreation programs are an integral part of the communities throughout this country, including the city of Richland Hills, and whereas our Parks and Recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region, and whereas Parks and Recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas Parks and Recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas Parks and Recreation, natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas the City of Richland Hills recognizes the benefits derived from Parks and Recreation resources. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Curtis Bergthold, Mayor of the City of Richland Hills, Texas, do hereby proclaim July 26, 2026 as National Parks and Recreation Month in Richland Hills, Texas, and encourage all citizens to enjoy the city's beautiful parks and amenities. You all are doing a great job, and I like hearing about how you're going to make us all healthy, too. So, anyway, let's give them a real big I think we have a special guest tonight too, y'all, so. That's all come up here, too.
Oh, he even has his jacket on. Professional dress. Feel free to fill in and hide all of us here. Oh, no.
Teresa, make sure she wasn't in it.
All right, I'm safe.
That's right.
We're
I have
these-
to move over
We need
here.
these halfbacks every week.
I have a gap over here. I have to move this way.
That's fine, you can skip. No. All right, the next we have the proclamation recognizing summer reading. This is an opportunity to encourage children, families, and residents of all ages to stay engaged in reading and lifelong learning throughout the summer. Chantel, if you'd like to come forward. right, citizen comments. Do we have any cards tonight? Okay, we'll move on. Consent agenda. We'll now consider the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved with one motion unless a council member or a citizen requests that an item be removed for separate discussion. Does anyone wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? Okay, we'll move forward. The suggested motion is to move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, we have Beautification and Public Art Advisory Committee. We'll now consider item 9A, a resolution establishing a Beautification and Public Art Advisory Committee. I'll ask staff to present the item, and I believe Chantel, you're presenting the item. And also, the suggested motion is to move to approve the resolution establishing a Beautification and Public Art Advisory Committee as presented.
Mayor and council, so the resolution is fairly long. Y'all have a copy of it, so I wasn't going to read the whole thing. But I did want to give y'all a little bit more information about the nominees for the committee. So these are all Richland Hills residents. Dr. Fletcher Coleman, he is an assistant professor of art history at the University of Texas at Arlington. He received his PhD from Harvard University and is a specialist on religious art and art historiography of Asia with a specialization in China. He was a recent speaker at one of Miss Ann's senior social times. I don't know if any of y'all got a chance to attend that, but he's a really interesting and knowledgeable guy. Darren Wright, who many of y'all know, he's here. He has been a professional bronze sculptor for over 45 years. During that time, he's made many works on commission for clients all over the world, including the Sleeping Panther in Fort Worth and a sculpture for the White House Rose Garden that was commissioned by President George Bush. Rachel Gonzalez Olivia is an urban planning professional. She has a master's degree in architecture and experience in commercial, residential, interior, and exterior design. Jennifer Hartsky, y'all know her. She most recently served on the 75th Anniversary Committee. She studied art history, communications, and ceramics in college and continues to explore creative interests. And then Erica Gill, in addition to being the Haltom City Library Director, she lives in Richland Hills and has a bachelor's degree in art history.
All right,
So those are our committee nominees.
that's great. And sounds like you have a good assortment or a good group of them.
Yeah. Did you guys have any questions about anything to do with the resolution? Nope.
Did you? Okay.
So Darren Wright, he's a sculptor, bronze sculptor in town. So if you get a chance, look him up and check out his website.
Yep.
Done some beautiful work, so for sure. All right, I'll
right.
entertain a motion.
Thank you.
I
Thank you,
make a
Chantel.
motion to approve the resolution 649-26 to establish a Beautification and Public Art Advisory Committee, defining the committee responsibilities, appointing members, and defining terms of service.
A second, okay.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Very good. Next, we will move on to Tarrant County interlocal agreement for Mimosa Park Drive. We'll now consider item 9B, a resolution approving an interlocal agreement with Tarrant County for the mill and overlay of Mimosa Park. Staff will present the item, Kelly Morris, and the suggested motion will be to move to approve the resolution approving the interlocal agreement with Tarrant County for the mill and overlay of Mimosa Park Drive as presented.
Good evening, Mayor and
Kelly,
Council.
yes, sir.
So a quick background on this 2600 block of Mimosa. Okay. There we go. Our previous CDB project was a water main replacement on this block. We upgraded a 2-inch water main to an 8-inch PVC. There was stampings on this 2-inch from the 1940s. We then in turn, this past year, did a pipe burst on the sewer main for fairly cheap cost relatively than open cutting, so we went the pipe bursting route. We then turned around, did the curb and gutter, and now we are seeking this ILA for mill and overlay with Tarrant County Precinct 3. This is we do a project with the county every year. I would have liked to have done more this year, but we did extend out all the concrete curb and gutter projects. So we're next year planning ahead, we seek to do more roadways with our street tax fund. So one of the benefits with going with Tarrant County, it's roughly $60 per linear foot. The calculations I put together from previous jobs, if we went to a contract, it could be $150 per linear foot. Also going this mill and overlay, there's no needed cost for engineering, no staking, none of that. It's just a straight, they mill 2 inches, lay down 2 inches.
It's a great program, I know, and they really want to partner with us even more, and I know you do too.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to get a lot of bang for our bucks out there.
Yes, most definitely.
Yep. Anything else on it?
No, y'all have any questions?
Y'all have any?
Pretty cut and dry on this one.
Sounds good to me.
It's great. We will need to do one of these, each street will need a separate agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I was just asked to make sure this was my block, and it is. So I asked
Yes.
this with everything, but since I do live there, what's the timeline of it getting done?
Given the approval tonight, I will push this back to the county tomorrow morning. They have to get their board to sign off on it. Given their approval, it'll be mid-July.
Okay.
We can take away some of those tripping hazards.
Wonderful. That's great. All right. Thank you very
All
much,
right,
Kevin.
thank y'all.
All right. All you have to say is that you move to approve, or you want to make a motion to approve. So,
I'll move to approve.
okay?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is pause safe routes to school funding in Strategic Initiative Fund. We'll now consider item 9C, a resolution pausing funding for the Safe Routes to School program in the Strategic Initiatives Fund and retaining related funds in the general fund at this time. Staff will present this item and Jason will be presenting. So, but the motion is to move to approve the resolution pausing funding for the Safe Routes to School program in the Strategic Initiatives Fund as presented.
Thank you, Mayor. So this item, we discussed, this next set of new business items that we'll go through are all ones that we discussed at the last work session, at the last meeting. Just to remind you, and where we had about $1.1 million or so that was transferring from the general fund into the Strategic Initiatives Fund, therefore being what we were going to use as our construction funding for the Safe Routes to School grant. So this is a set-aside program through North Central Texas Council of Governments Call of Projects. TxDOT is actually involved on this project, and this would be a state let. So that means that even though it's on city property or it's in the city system, we pay additional cost to have TxDOT administer it. And so that funding agreement was presented to staff, and it significantly was higher than what was originally presented, mainly because of the direct state costs that are associated with that. But beside that, we've talked about stabilizing our existing budget due to the loss of sales tax revenue, and this is one of the largest amounts that we can pause. And so we met with TxDOT last week with their district or their area office, North Tarrant area office, to inform them. So we will communicate, if council approves this tonight, we'll immediately inform TxDOT. But then also they advised us to get with the North Central Texas Council of Governments to try to push the project out a few years on the construction so we don't lose the grant necessarily. But that is, that's within the ability of city council to push that and request same project down the road. Happy to answer any questions you all have.
How do you define update where it says that you're allowed to update the budget and financial records? What exactly does that entail?
So where we would put a transfer out of the general fund into the initial, the Strategic Initiatives Fund, we're canceling that transfer.
But those are already approved by council.
Yes.
Okay.
This is why we're doing this action tonight, is to have council take action to stop that
To reverse the decision.
Now, how do we, you're just going to do it that one time?
Correct.
That doesn't mean to continue to update budget and
No, I would
financials?
not have that authority.
Okay, so you're just talking about the one time? Okay,
Just this
gotcha.
one item, and then you'll see a similar one on the oil and
Yes.
gas, yeah.
Okay.
Good question. Anybody else have anything? All right. Wanna Make a motion?
Mayor, I'll move to approve the pause of the Safe Routes to Schools program as presented.
All right, need a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. All right, next item, new business. We have a lot of new business tonight, so. Reallocate Glenview project funding to Booth Callaway project. We'll now consider item 9E, a resolution reallocating funding from the Glenview project to the Booth Callaway.
Didn't we
Oh, I'm
have
sorry.
We got.
the oil and gas?
Oil and gas is in the middle.
Okay.
Are they out of the sequence?
All right, out of sequence, here we go. Oil and gas fund budget amendment for safe routes to school design. We'll now consider item D, a resolution approving a budget amendment for the oil and gas fund related to the safe routes to school design funding. Staff will present the item, and that'll be Jason, and the suggested motion is to move to approve the resolution approving the oil and gas fund budget amendment as presented.
So to clarify, the budget amendment language is typically done by ordinance, correct? And so this is, again, similar to the other, where we're just not, we just won't expend the funds. So we are just pausing.
But it's stated in the
It
ordinance
stays-
itself, so.
Yeah, it
Okay.
stays in the funding, but we are just not going to spend that money. This is a companion item to the previous item, so this, if we're not going to be doing the safe routes to school, we don't need to pay for the design.
I just want to make sure that wasn't some open-ended thing going on there.
The text of the caption has to be short, but the text of the resolution makes it clear that it's only for this specific item.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Entertain a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the budget amendment for the oil and gas fund to stop funding safe routes to school, stop funding safe routes to school at this time.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next is reallocate Glenview project funding to Booth Callaway project. We'll now consider item 9E, a resolution reallocating funding from the Glenview project to the Booth Callaway Road project and providing related project direction. Staff will present the item. That'll be Jason Moore, and the suggestion motion is to move to approve the resolution reallocating funding from the Glenview project to the Booth Callaway project as presented.
So thanks, Mayor. This item just takes formal direction where we've talked in the past about, doing a full reconstruction of Glenview is not a necessity at this point in time as it relates to the condition of the road or the utilities underground. As compared to Booth Callaway, that does have a significant score or deficiency in pavement condition. But the reason for this item is because Tarrant County has agreed to provide a $5.5 million bond or funding as part of the project. And so with this resolution, we will go to the Commissioner's office to request this item be transferred to Booth Callaway. We also have submitted community project funding requests to Congressman Goldman and Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne's offices for significant federal funding for Booth Callaway. And we feel like we have a strong application because we also share a Booth Callaway border with Hearst, and so they helped in that application process. And so there's really not funding that was allocated to Glenview other than in our CIP as far as sales tax dollars go to leverage toward Glenview. But any funding that was associated with that would be allocated to Booth Callaway in the future. What we would, just as part of this resolution, is to proceed with a mill and overlay. If that's something, we'll bring all these projects to you as part of the CIP, but if Glenview needs a mill and overlay, we can work with Tarrant County on that, and then do what Kelly mentioned is the pipe bursting for the sewer. There's a smaller portion of sewer line, there's not water under there. That's something that we can review and get you pricing for down the road. But this will give us formal direction to go talk to the county.
All right, I'm a little confused. Is the mill and overlay committed to, or is it's just in the air?
It's, it is, we will bring you back pricing for an actual contract. So this is not authorizing you to spend money on
No.
the mill and overlay.
No, this is stopping the spend.
But this would give me, you would tell me, go do that, as part of this resolution.
I think the push that we're gonna have too is to get the county to participate in the cost, not just doing the work, but maybe part of the bond program, reallocating some of that 5.8 million, if we don't need all of it for Booth Callaway, if we get money from the federal government too. So there's a lot of working parts there, but that may be part of it, so try to get some of that bond money used. All right? I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve the reallocation of funding from Glenview to Booth Callaway project as presented.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next new business is City Council Committee meeting appointments. We'll now consider item 9F, Council Committee meeting appointments. After discussing with Mike Mowry of Strategic Government Resources, and who provided our IOP surveys, I'm making a recommendation for the following council members to be appointed to each of the following council committees. As mayor, it's my role to chair each committee, and therefore my recommendations are, for the Finance Budget Committee, I recommend Athena Campbell and Mike Witt. For the Infrastructure Workforce Committee, I recommend John Skier and Allison Barger. For the Community Development Committee, I recommend Travis Malone and Roland Govius. Y'all want to open it up for discussion, or do you want to talk about any changes?
Looks like those personality things you gave us fit this exactly.
They do, so that we can get some good open communication.
Is
and
that
not-
where you got
not
your,
all- No, not everybody's just aligned either, so that's good.
Yeah.
So I think it's very good, y'all. All right, so then we can have a motion to approve the council committee meeting appointments as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of the council members as presented
I'll
to the
second.
committees.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
7-0.
Very good. Next item of new business is in city subsidized real-time transport program. We'll now consider item 9G, a resolution ending the city subsidized real-time transportation program once current approved funding has been exhausted. Staff will present the item, that'll be Jason Moore, and again, the suggested motion is to move to approve the resolution ending the city subsidized real-time transportation program once current approved funding has been exhausted as presented.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, we talked about this at part of our budget stabilization and going into fiscal year 27 and programs that are available to eliminate upon exhaustion of funding. Right now, we average around $5,000 a month in the transportation program is what the city's contribution has been. It's anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000. And based on what was budgeted and where we are today, we feel like this will go through July, the current funding maybe into August, but if you guys would give us a hard stop date for just until the challenge is if we said, well, you run out of money, you've bought vouchers or there's other things, that's going to be hard to really just kind of end it with a zero balance. So we'll probably still have some savings or fund balance left. But this particular program has been in place since the city had voted to leave the Trinity Metro as the half-cent sales tax program. And so it's been about 9 years?
2016.
Not about 9 years.
10 years?
Yeah, yeah, we
10
voted
years.
2016.
But Mayor, that's the resolution officially ends that program. Now, if council wishes to, if you have specific detail or questions about the details of the program, City Secretary Boyd has a lot of those details. She's been managing the program and the review, as well as talking to other cities and other opportunities for transportation, if that's council's desire.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Are we gonna
So-
have the alternatives in place before we end this?
No.
No, I mean, if council
No.
directs us to go.
I would rather do that. I mean, I'd rather make sure we have other options in place for them to use before we just end it.
The challenge is we don't have funding.
Right,
We are literally out of funding potentially before the end of July.
so it's a $60,000 a year budget item for, what, 10 people?
Is this
No,
paid
we budgeted-
annually?
We budgeted 45,000 this year for it.
But it will go to about 60, so
If
it'll
we-
run over.
And when
It'll
is
run
that due?
So what the problem also is we have budget shortfall.
Right.
Let's just say another dozen people decide to do it. Then what are we gonna do?
No, I'm not saying I don't want to end it. I'm just saying, is there a way we can get the other things in place before we actually end it?
Those options are way more expensive for the city.
But all those options, okay, the options for folks that need that transit are available through Catholic Charities and the other programs.
So they're
It's not-
already available?
Yeah, they've been available. We've been providing this as basically, it was initially done as a stopgap, so the people that were relying on the TRE for their transit had a fallback. It's now been 8, 10 years, and this has gone well beyond its lifetime. The other side of it is, it really isn't serving the community as it should.
Mrs. Boyd, do you have anything to weigh in on this, since you've been looking into it?
We have approximately 11 to 14 people that utilize this service monthly. Usually closer to 11. But it's over $5,000 every month. So the alternatives, we've talked to, a couple of different companies about trying to figure out a different program where it's not 7 days a week or 6 days a week. But they significantly reduced the amount of utilization, and the cost went down by $1 a ride. So we're currently paying $25 per ride. So to save $1, you would only get to use it 2 days a week for about 4 to 5 hours.
Right. Well, as long as they have other options, it's
Serving
already
our
in place,
seniors-
so.
Serving our seniors has a
Yes.
volunteer program.
Okay.
Catholic Charities does some stuff.
Well, let's
There's-
make sure we put that out before we actually end it.
My understanding is
Notice, yeah.
my understanding is we're actually going to reach out personally to everybody on it.
Okay.
Here's some,
Option, yeah,
here's some resources.
in the notice of termination, can you include some of those other resources?
And I've talked about this with Jason previously, and the mayor. We do need to have a stop date. That's just gonna be so much easier to explain to people, than saying when the funding runs out.
Right.
Because again, it could be August and you're buying your tickets and you're already trying to book your rides. It's gonna happen to somebody.
Are we thinking July?
But July 31st is a Friday. If we want to be safe, maybe the 24th, which is the Friday before, obviously. It would be better to do that. That's my opinion anyways. But I really think when we're communicating this to the people, keep in mind, there's some that use the service that do have some intellectual disabilities, so they will understand a firm date a lot better than just what's when funding runs out. So
Well,
not
why don't
everybody
we just
uses
make
this.
it for as soon as we can after we notify everybody?
Well, no, we need a
We
hard
need
date.
to notify everybody,
Well, I meant-
so have a date.
He knows when we notify, I don't, so I'm just saying,
We
whenever.
do have a staff member who has volunteered to physically go to each person with a letter and have an explanation provided to them, so that it's not just, hey, I'm getting a letter that this is being canceled. There's gonna be someone to be able to explain to them.
Yeah.
This is what's going on, this is why, we're sorry, but here's some options.
And it's gonna be
July sounds
Okay.
good to me.
Okay,
And
but is the 24th sound like a really good date from a financial perspective based on your knowledge of burn rate?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What did you just say?
The July 24th. So,
Sounds like a good date to me.
Yeah.
okay.
But let me just say, I mean, obviously, this is one of these things that really, affects me really negatively. So, you know, again, talking to like Jason and some other people, you know, when we raise taxes, we all pay for that. When we raise the water bill, all of us up here pay for that. But it's riding the service. The city's not getting their value out of it. I mean, if I wanted to go to Walmart and back, $50 is ridiculous for the city to pay for that. And it's just, it's not getting the good value we need for the city, unfortunately. So, yeah, it's better for the city if we end this service. Unfortunately, I know it's not well utilized, but it's utilized, but it's not good for the city.
I appreciate your thoughtfulness and your opinion, Travis. Anybody else have anything? Okay, entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll move that we end the city subsidized real-time transportation program effective July 24th, 2026.
Need a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, very good, thank you. Next item of new business is Fire and Explosion Investigations Interlocal Assistance Agreement. We'll now consider item 9H, a resolution approving the interlocal assistance agreement for fire and explosion investigations. And I believe Chief Rhodes will be presenting this item. And again, the suggested motion is to move to approve the resolution approving the interlocal assistance agreement for fire and explosion investigations as presented.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to give you a little background on the interlocal agreement between the City of Richland Hills and the Tarrant County Arson Task Force proposal. So, give you a little background. It is actually very common in not just Tarrant County, but Dallas County, LS Collin. You have smaller communities that go into agreements with their county for their fire marshal's side of things. And it allows us to have additional resources that really, from our size community, it's not really fiscally prudent for us to pay for those when we can have this agreement to share those resources. It doesn't cost us anything. We already are paying to be a member of the task force, and that's been in place for many years. When I was in Euless, we paid that same due structure as well. And it allows us to get information, but also use the task force in the event that we have a fire here in Richland Hills. They bring in folks that are master fire investigators that have a direct pipeline through Tarrant County District Attorney's Office. The only thing that they ask of us is when there are incidents in Tarrant County, if we have these resources, we'll send somebody over there to assist in the investigation. And generally that is Brian Brindley with our department. He has done that about 4 times since I've been here. And in turn, we've actually had the Tarrant County Arson Task Force come over here and assist us. I think it's a great program, works very well, and it allows us to really address, if we have an arson fire, with the most trained folks that are out there, at least in Tarrant County, to deal with that accordingly. And I'll answer any other questions that you may have.
You said this is not an additional expense, it comes with our membership?
Well, for the most part, let me back up on that and clarify that. We've been paying to the Tarrant County Arson Task Force for many years, $500 a year. There is there's not any additional cost for us to go into this agreement. To be very frank with you, I would have told you we already had it in place. So I inquired when this was brought to to my desk why it was not in place. Us, along with a few other cities, had not signed the agreement. And Tarrant County was going out and really probably just looking at the books and said, we still have some pending agreements, and here we are. But I would have got in front of y'all and told you that we were good to go.
Okay. You just answered my question.
Yes, sir.
Because it sounded like we've been doing, I know that Brian's been doing a great job, and so he's been operating without an agreement.
Us and
And a few other
about
cities.
4 or 5 other cities that are very, very close to us. And yes.
Okay.
So I would really appreciate.
We- We need to fix this.
All right, thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir.
All right. Y'all have any more discussion? All right. I entertain a motion.
I'll motion that we approve the resolution approving the interlocal assistant agreement for fire and explosion investigations.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. That's the end of voting items tonight. So now reports and discussions. We'll now move to reports and discussions. Item 10A is the after-action report for the May 26th City Council meeting. And Jason will be presenting this item.
Yes, sir, thank you. I just want to make sure council has seen, not the scribbles, but I did put this out, sent you an email with this after action. So here's what you told us, this is what we heard you say, and then this is what we're doing. And we'll put this, we'll put a link on the website so that the public has this as well, but this would reflect your minutes as you discussed items. We'll do this for each council meeting. But we talked about the accessory structures. This is what we heard in that meeting, and this is the next step. Talked about IT infrastructure. I think there's a committee of a couple of council members that will be meeting with Sheena and Tota Verde this week or next, and then going through the budget. So if you like this format, we'll continue that, and we'll attach it as part of a report. I think it's attached to the agenda, but we'll do that going forward so that the public has it too.
Only comment I've got is, it'd be really helpful is if this could come out a lot earlier in the cycle,
Okay.
so that we can provide,
A lot of times I wanted to make sure that council has had a chance to see it and agree with what I put in there.
and that's what I'm asking for, is that.
Yeah. So we can, probably tomorrow or Wednesday, I can get you what we did today.
Perfect.
Good.
That's perfect.
It's a good tool for us, and we really need to look it over pretty close.
Oh,
too, Just
absolutely.
to make sure that we all hear it the same, so, because it's going to come back as an action item.
Sure.
Exactly.
Very good.
And this is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
The structure is great.
Yeah, it is. Yep. All right, next item is item 10B. It's an update on short-term rentals in Richland Hills. And JP Duque will be presenting that item.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, JP Duque, Community Development. I'm happy to provide a brief update on the city's short-term rental management efforts, not only the implementation process, but also an emerging policy consideration that has been identified throughout this process. Some of you may recall, City Council authorized in December of last year to pursue services from a third-party short-term rental management service. The city subsequently executed an agreement with Deckard Technologies in March of this year. Since that time, implementation has progressed through several phases, including system configuration, payment processing coordination, platform development, testing, and public outreach preparation. I'm pleased to report that the first 2 phases have been completed, and the registration and tax collection platform is currently in the final stages of development and testing. Public outreach will immediately follow the launch of the platform. And Deckard gave me a targeting to go live date prior to July 1st. So they wouldn't give me a specific date, but they said prior to July 1st. So that could be anytime within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And if anyone has any concerns regarding the mid-June start date, I can assure you that necessary efforts have been taken to encourage not only compliance, but also protect the city's hotel occupancy tax collections. Staff worked with the city attorney to prepare outreach materials that provide operators a 15-day window to register and begin reporting taxes for May 2026 and on. And operators who fail to register within that time frame will be required to calculate and remit any hotel occupancy taxes dating back to January 1st, 2025. In coordination, we have full authority to enforce delinquent payment for any case we deem fit. And so we thought it was fair that if they don't register within the 15-day time period that we give them, that they will have to pay from the date in which we adopted the short-term rental ordinance. We technically could go as far back as 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. And to date, Deckert has identified approximately 25 short-term rentals within the city. We do believe that number is expected to slightly increase as data continues to be refined over the next couple of weeks. And we currently have 11 short-term rentals fully registered in the community already, and they're already paying monthly hotel occupancy tax, and have made contact with a handful of other operators who are prepared to register once the system goes live. So we are currently receiving hotel occupancy taxes from 11 operating short-term rentals today. We've had conversations with roughly 2 or 3 other operators that are in the process of preparing registration materials, but are really just going to register once that platform goes live.
So you're saying 11 of 25 are registering?
We have already registered 11 of 25, but that's just been staff effort outside of our third-party management.
Okay, so 14 are not registered?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I agree, though, the number's gonna go up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, 25
Today.
currently is what they've identified today, and we believe that that number will increase slightly over the next couple of weeks.
So it's still a great effort that we've got 11 moving already. That's
Yes.
good.
Yeah, we're receiving collections from 11 already.
What are you using to identify those? Or what are they using?
They're using a lot of AI and a lot of different computer technology to kind of filter and comb through every single type of listing, website, and database that has anything regarding kind of long-term and short-term rentals. And so their data that they pull has every type of rental that pops up in the city of Richland Hills, and then they have to kind of comb through it to make sure that they're identifying the actual short-term rentals and not potentially long-term rentals or other kind of alternative types of rental units in the community. Where previously, when we didn't have kind of the technology to utilize that, we were kind of playing online detective, where we try to find the general location of where the listing would show, and then you try to find a picture of the front door if you could, and then you would have to go in Google Street View and see if you could find the exact front door of the one that you were looking for.
Your Amazon package.
Yeah, this has been a much easier process to identify the different short-term rentals in the community.
Has the one that I talked to you about been identified?
It has. Yes.
Or 2 of them, I think.
Yeah, I believe one of them has since been identified, and that's what I was talking about, like in the refining. There's been a handful that have popped up recently that were not there 3 weeks ago. So it's constantly evolving.
Yep.
I also wanted to briefly touch on the short-term rental activity related to the upcoming FIFA World Cup. I've asked Deckard to compile a specific data set that will kind of show a comparison of what this month and the upcoming months will look like in comparison to prior months and years. I'm still waiting on that, but they did provide me some preliminary findings, which indicated that the short-term rental activity has increased throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth region in anticipation of the event. However, the increase appears to be more moderate than many early projections suggested, with most significant impacts occurring closer to Arlington and major event venue areas. The last thing I wanted to touch on is what staff has come across throughout this process, specifically a potential ordinance issue in regards to short-term rental identification. And this does warrant council consideration, so I will be looking for a little bit of direction before I leave here tonight. And that is that at least 4 of the short-term rentals that were identified appear to be operating from a detached accessory structure. And under the city's current ordinances, the closest thing that we have is a guest house ordinance. So we regulate guest houses, which expressly prohibit those types of units to be rented separately from the private structure in any way, shape, or form. And so our zoning ordinance in its current form does not allow for these types of operations to, to be operating legally. that presents the question of whether we believe we should allow for accessory dwelling units to be rented, and if so, what conditions should be placed upon them in regards to the rental criteria. And that really does leave us with two options moving forward. The first is we continue to enforce our code the way that it's written, and when we are identify one of these short-term rental operations and they come in to register, we make it very clear to them that technically they're not in compliance with our zoning code and they're not able to operate, or we work towards potentially looking at amending our zoning ordinance to allow for not guest houses, but accessory dwelling units with very specific criteria for potential rental options. So really the only two options that we have. Prohibit or find a way to allow for accessory dwellings to be able to be rented separately.
And some of those things that you may put in place would be separate electric meters, separate water meters.
You're supposed to have that anyway.
If it's a guest house, it's not required. But if you wanted to do an accessory dwelling unit ordinance to implement that, there's also parking. So with a guest house, you know, it's typically the number of parking spaces are 2, like outside of the city right away. So on the private parcel, if you had an accessory dwelling unit in the back, do you have enough parking for that person so they're not on the street?
I mean, the guest house is specifically written in a way that it is just a supplementary kind of operation off of the primary building. You know, it's still a part of that kind of primary operation of, it's a resident, and then of the homeowners, that's their guests who are just staying in that guest house. Or the accessory dwelling unit is a completely separate kind of living unit apart from that primary residence. And so, like Jason was talking about, you have to consider potentially separate meters or separate parking availability. It is 2 different living units that are on the same piece of property.
So I have a couple of questions. What is the enforcement in case they don't comply? What will you do? What action will you take?
So they will be in violation of our zoning ordinance.
And so you'll fine them $2,000 a day?
That could be the, you know, you notify them of their violation,
Okay.
and you give them time to cease operations. And if we recognize they haven't ceased operations within the time in which we've given them, then we have the option to then start fining them at, I think, yeah, $2,000 a day.
Good, I think it needs to be a statement to them so that they do comply. So another thing we've talked about in the past too is inspection of these guest houses. What are we gonna do on that?
Yeah, so we are currently already doing.
We are?
Yeah,
Okay,
we've been doing them
perfect.
for the last year.
Okay.
We only have, I think, 4 or 5 that have been legally approved via our SUP process.
Okay.
And so those are the only ones we have record of. And we do inspections at the beginning of every year for our guest houses.
Okay.
And we haven't come across the fact that they're being rented.
No, no, we have a code inspection and a fire inspection, and that has not been
Okay,
an issue as of today.
okay.
So we're still inspecting though that they have not modified like their kitchen requirements and
Right.
things like that. That
That's
stuff
correct.
is still,
Yeah. So we print out essentially our guest house ordinance,
right.
and they go in there and make sure that there isn't anything that seems non-compliant to what our expectations are.
Okay. So of the 25 that you've identified, how many are guest houses as opposed to just the primary structure?
4.
Okay.
We've
just
identified
okay.
4 that are very clearly accessory buildings to the primary.
All right, it's not so bad.
So are we hearing council say those 4 need to go away? Or do you want
The
us to work on
short-term
it?
rentals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just don't want to be in that business.
No. Y'all have any other thoughts on that?
No, I'm in agreement with the current, the guest house ordinance was very clearly put up, and we had a lot of resident support
Right.
about that position, so I think that needs to be in place. The ADU item, without a question, I think we have to have electric meters and water meters, because this has come up twice at the state level. It's gonna come up again next year. And if it comes through, it's much better for us to have our ducks in a row saying, these are our policies for ADUs. And that steers the city down the road, so that if in the future somebody says, I'm gonna split this off, it's properly split. It's dealt with up front. Not that anybody wants that nightmare of land management, we should prepare for it. The other nice thing about having at least a water meter is the more water meters we get out there, the more the cost of the infrastructure is spread across the properties. And that means our water, basically my base bill is gonna go down a bit.
And that is a great point. I think it was Senate Bill 643 maybe, which never was passed, but it essentially proposed that cities would lose a lot of authority in regulating accessory dwelling units. It still would give us the ability to regulate them in like height, setbacks, general cosmetic related items, but wouldn't give us the authority to prohibit them outright. Obviously, that wasn't approved, but I do agree that's something we will see pop up again in the future. Now, whether it'll be written into law, we'll see. You know, that we can cross that bridge when we get there. But at that time, we would need an ordinance in place for accessory dwelling units to provide us some level of regulation outside of just whether they're permitted or not.
So we don't have any current data on how long these 4 have been short-term rentals, right?
No. Again, we're still waiting for all of the data to be finalized by Deckard.
Right.
But once it is complete, I will be able to see how long that's been an active listing for.
Okay, so moving forward, if it's been going on for multiple years and we do annual inspections and we have been unaware, how are you gonna enforce
Sure.
moving forward that it stays a,
Yeah. So I will add that I don't believe that the ones that we've identified were established via SUP.
Right.
Over the last 5 to 10 years. They were either in existence prior to that.
so they're not being inspected?
Or, yes, so they're not being inspected. Or they were essentially built without permits. And in both of those cases, depending on when they were built, I mean, if they've been built within the last 12 years, they were not established legally. And so I don't know that they have the authority to operate as a guest house, as that ordinance has been in place for that long.
Right, so how are we gonna monitor going forward that they don't continue as an ADU
Yeah,
'Cause
that's a
we-
good
or a
question.
short-term rental? But also, we might need to look at why those aren't being, I mean, I understand why they're not being inspected, but maybe how to get them inspected, what, you know, they're not on the list because they weren't built during a certain time, but
It's 'cause-
sounds like they need to be on the list.
Well, I agree, but they're not being inspected because we don't have any record of them until we
Until
came
you drove
across
by
them.
and saw them.
Yes,
Or, yeah.
until we
Or
came across
Deckard.
them as
Or,
listed.
yeah, they found them, yeah.
Yeah, until
Okay.
these.
Listed on
these-
Airbnb.
So
Exactly.
they will be added to this mother-in-law suite inspection list?
Well, as a
annual
part of this
inspection.
process and direction by council, we will be prohibiting them to be short-term rentals.
Right.
And so this will also be an opportunity to establish what the use of those can be. And registering them, at least recording them in our list of accessory buildings that are clearly being utilized for some
Otherwise.
type of living use.
Okay.
All right, very good. Thanks, JP.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to move on to community interest items. The council may share eligible announcements, recognitions, reminders about upcoming events, or public health and safety information. No formal action will be taken under this item. And now we'll have Councilwoman Athena Campbell. Would you like to present the list of the current items?
Sure. Summer camp at the Link. The Link is hosting summer camp from May 27th to August 7th for children ages 5 to 12, with full days of fun and structured activities, including crafts, group games, outdoor play, gym time, and a weekly scheduled field trip. Camp runs from 7:30 a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. Families should send a sack lunch each day. Reminder, register now for summer camp at the Link to lock in your child's spot. Just $20 deposit holds your place. Senior Lunch Bunch and Bingo is offered on the second Thursday each month in the community rooms. The fee schedule is $3 for Link members and Richland Hills residents, or $5 for non-members without a Link membership. Space is limited, and you may register by phone at 817-616-3738, online at thelinkrec.com, or in person at the Link. Bingo is at 1 p.m. following the luncheon. French fries for everybody and furry friends. June 17th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Richland Hills Animal Services. Come meet and thank the staff and visit the animals in the shelter. Eat all the French fries you can eat, made by Toby and Joni Wright, and pick up a few items for your pets from Forever Buddy. All are invited. French fries for humans only and not pets. Kane's Arcade, Tuesday, Friday, June 16th to 19th, 4 to 7 p.m. for ages 8 to 16. Brainstorm and build your own cardboard arcade game over the course of 3 nights. Then show it off to everyone at the Friday showcase. Parks and Recreation Month. In July 2026, Parks and Recreation Month will highlight the theme, The Power of Parks and Recreation and the people who make it all possible. These programs bring our community together, promote health and well-being, and help build stronger, more connected neighborhoods. For more information on weekly events and dates, visit the linkrec.com. Soccer Watch Party. Kick off Parks and Recreation Month with us. Join us for our first Soccer Watch Party on Wednesday, July 1st at 7 p.m. at the City Marketplace, 7206 Latham Drive. Come cheer on your favorite team. Wear your jersey and enjoy free activities for the whole family. Food and drinks will be available for purchase. Check out linkrec.com to get calendar event dates. Northeast Family Fun, corn dog eating contest, food trucks, free concert, free parking, free fireworks, inflatables for the kids. Come celebrate our most patriotic holiday at our Family Fourth. North Tarrant Chamber Family Fourth event will feature an outstanding display of fireworks from 9:30 to 10 p.m. Wednesday, July 1st. Red, White, and You. Grab your family, friends, and neighbors and join us as we celebrate America's 250th anniversary, Saturday, July 4th. Patriotic Parade, 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. There'll be live music from the Inspiration Band, carnival rides, a balloon artist, face paintings, arts and crafts, and free snow cones, hot dogs, and water while supplies last. And the last item we have didn't make it to the finish line on time, but it is the Library Literary Club at 6:30 tomorrow night on the 9th of June. We just finished reading The Huntress, and we're on to bigger and better things, so please join us.
And they always have a good snack, right?
Oh, good
Always.
snack.
Always.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Made by the best chef in town.
There you go. I hope she's watching, anyway. I'm not sure, but is the Family Fourth still gonna have the drone show, have you heard?
Yes.
And so they're hoping to set a world record on that. So if y'all can make it out, it's pretty impressive. So anyways, we'll be part of that chamber event, so we contribute to it, and it's a good time out there. Does anybody else have anything they want to add? Allison looks like she has something. No, maybe not. All right.
I was thinking there's something, but no.
Okay, well, not for this group anyway, right? All right, if there's no further business, I'll adjourn this meeting at 7:30 p.m. All right, good job, everyone.
Thank
you.
All right. That was a shocker.
What?